Want to be a part of the program. All right, I have a message for all of you based on things that I know and sources I have and things that are driving me nuts. If you listen to the media, they are telling you Trump allies are plotting a candidate intervention after a disastrous 48 hours. Key Republicans close to Trump's orbit are plotting an intervention with the candidate after a disastrous 48 hours led some influential voices in the party to question whether Trump can stay at the top of the Republican ticket without catastrophic consequences for his campaign at large. RNC head Reince Priebus, Mayor Giuliani, House Speaker Newt Gingrich are among Trump endorsers hoping to talk the real estate mogul into a dramatic reset of his campaign in the coming days. By the way, there are things he can improve on. We're going to get to that in a second. The Daily Mail, Republicans actively exploring a plot to ditch Trump. Incredibly upset party chair Reince Priebus calls candidate over the feud with the Khan family. Anyway, Republicans are revisiting party rules for filling vacancies after Trump's erratic week. Plan would only work if Trump were to remove himself from the ballot. Officials are fuming over candidates' refusal to endorse Paul Ryan and also John McCain. Now, look. My first thing I would say to Donald Trump about all of this is he's got to stop talking. We're 96 days away. 96 days away from this election. And this election is completely winnable. You can't listen to a media narrative and you can't, I understand his frustration with Paul Ryan and John McCain and Lindsey Graham, and I don't think Senator Ted Cruz is endorsed or John Kasich or Jeb Bush. I get his frustration. I'm particularly annoyed at Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan is up against the fight of his life, if you believe the media and what they're saying about his primary race that's coming up in a week in Wisconsin. And I'm a little sick and tired. It seems Paul Ryan and some of these other establishment Republican types have taken to the idea that they are going to be true to what it means to be a Republican. And I don't think there's anything about Trump's agenda that's not conservative, except maybe with the issue of trade. You can argue on the issue of free trade, but I think Trump's a free trader. He just wants better trade deals, and everything to him is a negotiation. So, as far as I'm concerned, I feel like I'm going to tell you one other thing. I'm just going to say it because it needs to be said. If in 96 days Trump loses this election, I am pointing the finger directly at people like Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham and John McCain and John Kasich and Ted Cruz if he won't endorse, and any of the Jeb Bush and everybody else that made promises they're not keeping. And because I have watched and witnessed to the point of incredible frustration, I have watched these Republicans be more harsh towards Donald Trump than they've ever been in standing up to Barack Obama and his radical agenda that has doubled the national debt, that has resulted in a 51-year low in terms of home ownership in this country, the percentage of homes that are owned by Americans, that has led to the lowest labor participation rate since the 70s, and that has led to millions and millions and millions more Americans in poverty and on food stamps and out of the labor force. They did nothing. Nothing. All these phony votes to repeal and replace Obamacare show votes so they can go back and keep their power and get reelected. Sorry, you created Donald Trump, all of you, because of your ineffectiveness, because of your weakness, your spinelessness, your lack of vision, your inability to fight Obama, your fear of being blamed for a government shutdown. And I'm getting a little sick and tired of all of you. I mean, I honestly am just tempted to say I don't support any of you people ever. Well, you know what? Paul Ryan wants to play this game. Well, I haven't made up my mind either. He's running against the guy in the primary. I haven't made up my mind who I'm going to support. Well, we'll find out in a couple of days. I haven't made up my mind. This game that they're playing. And so Trump fires back because he's sick and tired of these idiots that can't. We just had a Democratic convention where you had the single most leftist socialist platform ever written in American history. I don't hear a peep out of any of these people about it. You had a socialist that now defines and captured the hearts of the Democratic Party. You don't hear a peep out of these people. You have a president that was reckless not only with the economy, as I just mentioned, and doubling the national debt and accumulating more debt than every other president before him combined. He literally gave money to the number one state sponsor of terror, Iran, to get hostages back. And he's given these idiots $150 million of money so they can, according to reports last week, now they've cut in half the time they can build nuclear weapons. Where were you after American treasure, blood, sweat, tears, the financial burden of winning Iraq? And you allowed these people to demagogue the war in Iraq, and that created an opening for ISIS. I don't hear you critical of Hillary. How many Americans died in Mosul and Ramadi and Fallujah and Tikrit and Baghdad, only to hand it over to the JV team that's contained? You got to be kidding me. How many of you fought Obama on Syria? How many of you fought hard to expose the lies that were told about Libya or the lies in Hillary's email server scandal? Some of you did, but a lot of you didn't. You're too busy criticizing Trump, Speaker Ryan. It's ridiculous. Sick of all of it. With that said, and all that you're reading, you've got to understand that there is establishment types that are probably as equally invested in Donald Trump losing as are the Democrats. Even though Trump leads in the latest LA Times poll, I saw a poll coming out later tonight that Trump's down by 10. You know, even though Obama's failed economy is costing American families $17,000 per year, well, that's a year's worth of college tuition for a student who can't currently afford one. He's too busy giving all this money to Iran for hostages. By the way, voters still say, according to Pew, that Trump's more likely than Hillary to turn the country around. Here's my advice for Trump, if he wants to listen. There is some valid criticism here that you need to take to heart. You don't need to talk about Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, John McCain, Paul Ryan, John Kasich. You're not running against them. You don't need to talk to Mr. Khan and respond to every criticism that is sent your way. You don't need to attack on Twitter CNN, CBS, NBC, ABC, and MSNBC anymore. There's no point. You have one job in the next 96 days, and that is not to fall into Hillary Clinton, the media's trap of discussing things that get you off of focus. If Hillary Clinton can convince enough voters that Mr. Trump doesn't have the temperament for the presidency, or that he's too impulsive, then Hillary will win this election. She cannot win on her record. She cannot win on substance. She cannot win on issues of integrity and honesty and character. Without exception, wherever I am, people stop me and they ask me all the time to send a message to Mr. Trump. Next time you see him, just tell him to shut up and tone it down. Every person, without exception. And these people, in that sense, are right. So if he wants to win the election, this is my advice for you. The Trump campaign needs message discipline. They need social media discipline. The only person he should talk about for the next 96 days is Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama's failures. That's it. Nobody else should be mentioned or fought with, period. There's only so many people. Look, I have to make this decision sometimes in life, too. I can only be in so many fights at once. You know, sometimes I get a cheap shot taken at me by this person in the meeting. I'm like, I don't have time. I just can't deal with it now. You gotta prioritize. So the first thing is I'd only mention Hillary and Obama. They're your opponents. The topics should be about your agenda to get Americans back to work, jobs, fixing our broken economy, and protecting our homeland. If you want surrogates to go out and battle Paul Ryan and Mr. Khan and John McCain and Lindsey Graham, go send them out. That's not your job. Somebody has got to manage social media a little better in this campaign. That's now crucial because one bad tweet can be a 5, 6, 10-day story. I would stay on message. I would stay on teleprompter. And, I don't think this is really